It's bourbonblog.com live. I've long been a fan of the Colkegan whiskey. It is an American single malt whiskey. This is the maker, the founder, Colin Keegan from Santa Fe Spirits, joining us live from Santa Fe. How's it going out there, Colin?
It's going well. We're having a bit of a heat wave or a heat dome at the moment, as they're calling it, but
right.
It's going well. Can't complain. We've got lack of humidity, so it's lovely out here at the moment.
Excellent. Well, any weather is good whiskey drinking weather, I would say. And I first met you, I think it was at Breckenridge, the Still on the Hill, 10 years ago or so, right after you first started.
Yeah.
I know you've been making this. Well, you actually started laying this whiskey down right when you guys first started, right?
Yeah, 10 years ago we started laying it down and selling about 6 years ago now.
Excellent. Well, tell us, where should we start? Tell us, what is Santa Fe Spirits? What all do you make?
We really fall into the category of, a bunch of people, me and my guys, with an ideal, and we started making good whiskey. And a few years later, said, "Oh gosh, you've actually got to try and sell this stuff." So it was an idealist start. It wasn't a venture capital group with a lot of money. Nothing wrong with that. They're making some great whiskeys. So we've diversified. We have 9 different spirits, 3 of which are our single malts. We can talk about those in a bit.
Right.
We buy and process a vodka, like a lot of distilleries. That's just gravy to keep our tasting rooms going. And actually, our biggest seller is our gin. We're known for our whiskey, but the biggest throughput is our gin. 40% of our income is our 2 tasting rooms. We can have 2 in New Mexico, 1 in the distillery and 1 downtown. And that's really the main reason for having such a broad range of spirits.
Right. So you do a lot of business in the tasting room. Yeah. A lot of people traveling through Santa Fe. You're a destination there.
Yeah, we are. People come to Santa Fe. They don't only think of whiskey when they come here, but we're anxious to make sure that everybody who leaves has a bottle in their check bag, I hope.
That's very nice. Well, let's start out with a taste, just so that everybody knows what a special whiskey the Colkegan is. It is the American single malt whiskey. It's becoming a hot category, but before a lot of these brands were doing it, you all were doing it. What inspired you to create an American single malt whiskey 10 years ago?
It's funny. I live in an apple orchard where the Apple Brandy, we'll talk about that in a minute, comes from. And I was just going to have a hobby. I'm an architect by training, designed a house in an apple orchard. Project fell apart. I bought the apple orchard, designed to put my house there. And then really, as I was putting a business plan together of how to make apple brandy, somebody said, well, not many people drink it. Why don't you do something you really enjoy as well, which is single malts? I've come to love single malts, all whiskey really, but single malts more than anything. And we started laying down Colkegan. It wasn't called Colkegan at the time. It was back in 2010. And this year we're going to celebrate our 10th anniversary and coming out with a sherry cask finish version of the Colkegan specifically for that. Other things about
so that'll be the 10th anniversary whiskey, the sherry finish.
Yeah, the sherry finish will be our 4th in the lineup, and it will be starting at tasting rooms only, and then New Mexico, and then further afield. I decided my favorite whiskeys have always been smoked whiskeys, but with Colkegan, we really had to tone it down, to be honest, for the American palate. I'll drink an Ardbeg or a Lagavulin or a Lafroig any night of the week I can. And that's just too smoky for 90% of people in America. And that's what they think of when they think of Scotch. They think, it's that thing that's going to really attack you with iodine flavors and stuff. It's not, but it's a different category. So American single malts weren't really their own category when we started. I joined with 6 others at Binny's in Chicago, one really stormy day in it was 2014. 16. Sorry, 2016. And we actually started forming the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission.
Wow.
There were 6 of us sitting in that, 6 groups in that, 6 distilleries in that room. A lot of names you already know. There was Westland, Westward, Virginia Distilling. Who else was there? Copperworks. Few. Paul was there. And the sort of same old cast of characters, but now there's 130 members of the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission.
That's amazing. And
so
you
it's
created that commission, which you said 6 years ago.
6 years ago, yeah, we started that, yeah.
And
sloshing my whiskey around.
Yeah, please do. And the goal with that was to give direction towards American single malt whiskeys?
Yeah, really the goal is sort of category recognition. You know, the Bourbon blog is a great thing. It's all about bourbon, not all about bourbons, but, you know, primarily obviously about bourbons, your specialty, Tom. But something you know when you're buying an American bourbon is you get a quality product, you know, because of the restrictions that are on it, you know. It's the corn, it's the aging, et cetera, et cetera. Right. That's sort of what we're looking for in the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission, which is a really long title. But anyway, the group was looking for trying to sort of get their arms around building a category. And we basically, and Steve Hawley's the president of the guild, and he'd be a great guy to, you know, talk to a lot of people about whiskey. But he's, I say guild, sorry, commission. The mission from the very beginning was to put some sort of restrictions, is a tough word, some guidelines around how we go about it.
Right.
We don't want to be the Scottish Whisky Association, the SWA,
right,
which to us seems like an exclusive group. We're an inclusive group of whiskey makers. We welcome people. There are suggestions that we took to the Taxation and Trade Bureau are quite far-reaching and wide. You know, cask size can vary in many different ways. Luckily for me, because I age in new and used oak with this whiskey, right, it doesn't have to be used oak. It doesn't have to be new oak.
It could be either.
It can be either and or a mix. It's a single malt, so it's going to typically be barley. But, you know, we're talking about other grains, etc. You know, classic whiskey rules and regulations, really for helping sort of not control, but guide the category. And there really is some big names from the craft world in there that I'm very happy to be associated with. Another big reason for doing it is category recognition really helps in liquor stores. You know, craft spirits really need every leg up they can get.
Right.
And when you go down the aisles in a liquor store, you'll see Scotch, you'll see Irish whiskey, you'll see bourbon, or maybe American whiskey is a separate category. But you don't see an American single malt category. You might even see a Japanese single malt category.
Right.
But we're trying to have a definition from the TTB so that we can have one of those hanging banners on the string above the aisle that hopefully has, you know, 30 or 40 good single malts there.
So you're still working to get that definition.
Yeah, we've got our manifesto, if you want to call it that, into the Taxation and Trade Bureau, and it is under review at the moment. And that doesn't really sound like a lot, but to get it onto the desk of the Taxation and Trade Bureau is quite a feat, and to get it under review is quite something. The ACSA, I'm a board member, not that that really swung anything, right, has really supported this effort, as has Discus. Those two groups have really sort of put their seal of approval on the paperwork we put out.
That's excellent. So what are you all wanting the definition to be? I mean, we have a general idea of what American single malt whiskey is, but what's the definition you would like to see for great products?
We're looking for whiskeys that are distilled above 80 proof, and they're also they can be aged in various size casks. The cask size, I'm gonna have to remember now, is over 700 liters, which sounds a bit of a weird category, but it's a sort of internationally recognized cask size, and you can go down from that if you like. But really, the big differentiator is 1 grain, 1 distillery. It's to give everybody a chance to experiment within that category, but not really be so restricted. 51% corn and new American oak, like bourbons have a lot of restrictions on them, which can make it difficult sometimes.
So you want to see it be 1 grain from 1 distillery.
Yeah,
and that grain could vary then.
It could vary. And we haven't put anything in there about additives, but of course, to get the enzymes, you really do need barley in there or added enzymes in there. So it's going to be, it would be a challenge to do it without barley, but we can have other grains in there too.
Usually, though, in most cases, from when we see American single malt whiskeys, it is barley.
Usually, yes.
Right.
90% of the time, it's going to be barley. Now, you can, and some people call it adulterated barley. Our whiskey has a third of the grain is mesquite smoked.
Okay.
And a third of the grain is unsmoked. So our suppliers do send us grain from 2 different sources. I mean, we buy from Breese Malting House in Chilton, Wisconsin, and Shakopee, which is where BSG has a malting house. But it is 1 grain. It's barley that's sent to us and processed in our distillery. And there's some good craft producers out there that wouldn't fall into that category. So we're having, big discussions with various people and trying to make it as inclusive as we can without really degrading what the mission's about, which is high quality whiskey.
High quality whiskey, right? Exactly. Yeah. So again, 1 grain, and would that grain mean that it would have to come from the same source or just the same kind?
Same kind of grain. So ours doesn't come from 1 source; it comes from 2.
So it can come from several sources. You could do things with it like mesquite smoke, et cetera, but it would have to be all 1 grain.
Has to be 1 grain, yeah, and it has to be made in 1 distillery. So if we had a building up in Idaho or somewhere, we malted it up there. Some of it up there and some of it down in Santa Fe, that wouldn't classify for the category we're in at the moment. Has
to all be malted same time.
Well, not malted. The malting's done off-site, but the actual distilling is done.
Right, has the distilling
and the distilling.
You would be doing it all in 1 place.
Yeah, all in 1 place.
You've created is amazing. So part of what I'm getting on this, the original in the American white oak barrels is that I'm getting that nice mesquite, aren't I? That smoke. This mesquite is bold, but it's not so bold that it overtakes it. I mean, it's just a really well balanced boldness.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the whiskey. We wanted to have something that, when we put it together, it really differentiated us from general American single malts. We really love the category, but wanted to be a bit of a different fish in there, like Santa Fe Spirits is in a lot of cases. So mesquite smoking would set us apart, although there is actually about 4 or 5 now good mesquite smoked whiskeys out there. Del Bac is known for one, and Balcones, if they start putting one together, they'll probably crush us because they're big enough. But everybody's trying some variation on it, and there are lots of different smoking. But we only smoke a third of the grain, so a third of the grain is smoked, and 2/3 is unsmoked. Also, to help temper that, is a third of the whiskey is aged in new oak. As a bourbon, typically it has to be, and 2/3 is aged in used oak, typically like a Scotch would do. So it's the smoke is tempered by the new oak barrel as well. So we think that's what actually makes it work out. And you can see I've got ice cubes in this one because it's so hot here at the moment. But you can see it also. It's got a lighter color to it as well. I am cheating, but I know what it tastes like already.
Yes, it is. It is so lovely that the mesquite comes through nicely. I mean, there's wonderful smoke, not too much of it. And this is aged for about how long then?
It's a minimum of 3 years for Colkegan. We'll have some 4 and 5 years in there. What we do is a 15 cask blend. It's 53 gallon casks, full size, 2/3. So it'll be 10 used, to 5 new, poured into the blending tank. And we're looking for some with, maybe stronger smoke, some stronger oak. And we're really trying to keep Colkegan the same. We are laying down 3 times as much as what we're selling. So we're actually building a much larger inventory. So as we go through this, we are going to be able to, when we get to an 8-year-old, I might put it on the label, but I don't think it's worth putting a number on the, excuse me, on the label before that.
Right.
But it's a minimum 3-year at the moment, maybe minimum 4-year in about 18 months time.
Right. So we're looking at between 3 to 4, 5 years or so. And have you done some releases that you've released? You said some older whiskey?
No, we will do we'll do some specialty releases. I mentioned the sherry cask finish. That's a regular Colkegan that we poured into Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. So that's a minimum 3 years to start. When the time we get to hopefully we have a party, we'll wait and see at the moment in September. That'll be a minimum 4-year-old whiskey. The same as the Apple Brandy cask finish, which I did shift over to.
Yep. I got some of that. Yes.
Yeah. That's the
maroon label.
Yeah, that's the maroon label.
How long is it going to that Apple Brandy cask?
It spends a minimum of a year in Apple Brandy casks. So we age it. Actually, there is a difference in how we age it in that we do what we call a wet empty. And I'm sure you've heard this, but maybe if everybody on the call hasn't, empty the Apple Brandy out of the 25-gallon casks. We age that in half sizes because we're trying to push the oak a little bit. But that brandy's aged for 2 years in that cask. So it's really tempered down the oakiness. Empty it, turn it back. And by weight, there's about 2 gallons left in that barrel. Then we pour the Colkegan straight in while it's still wet. So there's about 2 gallons of Apple Brandy to 25 gallons of Colkegan.
Amazing. And again, it is Colin Keegan. He is the founder of Santa Fe Spirits. If anybody has any questions, ask them down below or tweet us back, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Looks like we do have a fan. Tom Greener is enjoying some Colkegan Cask Strength Single Malt from batch number 8. So he's actually
batch number 8. Wow, that's going back a bit now. That's good news.
Yeah, he's sipping on that. I know Tom's a fan of that.
He's not drinking it fast enough. Tom, what's
that?
He's not drinking it fast enough if he's still on batch 8.
He liked it so good. Now, that would have been how many batches back?
We're currently on batch 15 in the bottle. Right. And batch 16 will be bottled within 6 to 8 weweeks now.
Wow.
It's busy resting. We truly believe in the way we like to describe our whiskey is it's a classic style, made in the classic fashion, but with modern technology. We've got modern stills and temperature controls. But when we pull the 15 casks at a time out, we put them into a big blending tank and very slowly add the water back. We don't want any of that sponification, the sort of soapiness that can come if you throw the water in too fast.
Right. And you have the apple finish, the original in American Oak, and then you have is it a cask strength as well?
Yeah, I need to get you one of these as well, Tom. I didn't have the packaging when I sent you them, but I will send you. This is the cask strength, and this is actually each cask strength bottle is a single cask release. So there's only going to be, depending on the angel share, 220 to 240 bottles of each cask. But when we pull those 15 casks to make Colkegan, we actually you're tasting it obviously as you're putting it into the blending tank. But sometimes a cask will just call out, "Leave me alone as I am. I got the right balance of what you're looking for, and it's just right the way it is." And we start tasting. That's at 118 proof. So we start tasting at that and go down to, that's 118 a cask strength. It's not as massive as some, but it'll blow your skirt up, as we say in England.
Yeah. What now? When you were growing up, was obviously in Britain. Were you Scotch single malts? These were with some of your favorites then.
I'll be honest. I picked up my it was Scotch that I was drinking. A lot of Scotch later in life, kind of when I could afford a good bottle, to be honest. When I was going through college and stuff, when you start drinking, I just drank whatever whiskey was there. And in a lot of cases in England, there was blended whiskey.
Right.
And I couldn't figure out what the fuss was all about. Now, those are people who know the difference between single malts and blended whiskey. Now I get it. But at the time, it was like, oh, God, this is pretty harsh, and I don't like it. There are some good blended whiskeys now. But when I was growing up, 30 years ago back in England, the blended whiskeys, the Dewar's, even Johnny Walker, I don't particularly care for that as a whiskey. They've got some great brands out, but I would lean towards single malts more for the differentiation between them. So I got a love of whiskey later on in life, really.
Right. And and you say your gin is one of your most popular products. And tell us about the gin.
Yeah, the gin. Let's see if I can grab it out of the category here. I typically have a bottle somewhere in this category. No, I don't actually see it. Otherwise, I get a bottle to show you. But anyway, it's called Wheeler's Gin, named after Montague Wheeler, who was a cartographer that laid out the metes and bounds of New Mexico. It's a square. It wasn't very difficult. He came south, whereas Lewis and Clark went north. They laid out the northern territories. And 30 years later, after them, he started laying out a lot of the southern territories. While he was here, he was an amateur botanist, and he wrote a couple of pamphlets on the botanicals in the Southwest, which, to those people who live in the Southwest, you'll get a little smile across your face. It's so dry here, it's hard to grow anything, really. It really is. But we only have 5 botanicals in the gin. The most prevalent note is white desert sage. That sort of dusky, sagey smell that wafts across the desert. When we were putting it together, our goal really was to smell like the rainstorms in New Mexico.
You wanted it to really reflect that. You wanted it to really reflect New Mexico.
Really reflect New Mexico. So all the botanicals are sourced within 30 miles of the distillery. We sometimes have to buy them from other suppliers, but the white desert sage grows here. There's a rosemary flowery note in there. There's cholla cactus blossom. There's a root called Osha root, O-S-H-A, and that's used in herbal teas. The Native Americans used to chew it, and then the Spanish. A bronchial dilator that used to help you breathe if you had a cold. But it's a really earthy note that we use as the grounding note in the gin. The top note, beer lovers love to hear this, is Cascade hops. Because I always feel gin needs some kind of citrusy back note. We don't get citrus because we do get snow here in the winter, so that would kill any citrus plants. But the Cascade hops we actually buy from Santa Fe Brewing Company, another great group. Wow. And that's the high note. The Osha's the low note. The big note in the middle is the sage. There's the cactus. Oh, and there is juniper. We really have played the juniper way down in this.
So these are some notes that we typically wouldn't find in other gins that come across to really reflect Santa Fe. And I should probably also say Colkegan. I mean, is it in most states? How many states are you in?
We're in 11 states at the moment.
Right.
But we really, unfortunately, have had to, in recent times, even before the COVID pandemic hit, we pulled back to 6 that we can really focus on. Our main focus is the Southwest. It's New Mexico, Colorado, but we have a lot of government control states, Idaho, Montana, Oregon. Oregon's great for craft whiskeys. New York's a big state for us, Illinois, and Texas.
Yes.
So we have pulled out of places like, where was it? Georgia we were in, and we tried in Washington State. It's those of you in craft spirits know that the struggle of marketing dollars versus, keeping the lights on in the distillery. We're still small enough that it's a factor for us.
Right. You got to balance all that out. And if you want to find out where Santa Fe spirits and Colkegan whiskeys can be purchased. That's the website you can go to and learn about where to find it. And are there people, if they're not in one of those states, they can buy your products online, or there's some online distributors?
It's something. I was a board member at ACSA, and I put my name back up again. One of the big challenges we're taking on, as well as the federal excise tax reduction, is direct-to-consumer shipping across the whole US. We were recently with a store called Davidson's in Colorado that was shipping our product to 26 other states.
Wow.
They lost their license. I think Colorado changed the rules and regulations, and we're actively looking to sign up with another online group, probably somebody like Caskers or Flavia or somebody like that, which to us sort of fits our brand better. So
we'll be seeing those come online more and more as you grow what you're doing, and you've grown it, slowly in a beautiful way, starting with really old product. When you first put it in a bottle, I mean, it's very well aged and just really delicious. There's nothing quite like it from the very first time I had it several years ago with you.
Thank you.
I was immediately impressed with just how much complexity, how much depth. It's the beautiful notes that you would get on a Scotch from Scotland, but also this great part of Americana with the mesquite and with the other elements. It's just extremely well thought, and there's really nothing quite like it. And if anyone, again, if you have any questions for Colin Keegan, please ask us down below. And Donald Snyder is watching us.
Oh, there's Donald.
Yeah, hey, Donald, what's happening? Hello from Florida. He's drinking Colkegan Single Malt. We know he's a fan of what you do, and so many people that really know good whiskey in the business, like Donald, love your stuff, and people that just find good whiskey. With your Colkegan, I mean, obviously great by itself, and that's how I usually have it with a little ice. Are there any cocktails that you've ever seen done with this that you like, or?
Sorry, I'm sending an email to Donald here, or a text message to Donald.
Right.
Congratulations on the company change. I will answer that in a second about cocktails, but what I was going to say is,
all right, please.
Donald was, he's quite an inspirational guy for those of us in the craft spirits world.
Yes,
those of you who don't know who are listening, Donald has a proprietary software that, and I'm sure you know this, Tom, that he sells to all of us, or we lease monthly, and it really helps us take care of a lot of TTB reports. He's one of the experts that if you sign up for his service, you just get all this wealth of knowledge. He says nothing but help craft distilleries, and that's one of the great things that people like yourself, Tom, who get the word out about whiskey all the time, people like Donald who really support us. They don't get to be front and center on stages, but there's a lot of great people in our industry, and this is somebody else, Martin Duffy, who supplies us with, and you know Martin Duffy.
Yes, Martin does
these wonderful wine glasses. Yeah, there's some great people in our industry, and I just want to have a shout out to anybody and everybody. One, for drinking it, and two, for just being part of it. The distillers, of course, we all know who we are. We get our names splashed around all over the place, but the rest of you in the industry, like Tom, who are doing a great job of promoting us left, right, and center, and like Donald, who are, making sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's and not getting into trouble with the Taxation and Trade Bureau. It's a great band of brothers, and I'm happy to be part of it.
It is. Cheers to you all. Cheers to you, Colin.
Cheers to everybody.
Yes, cheers to all those who drink it and all who are watching tonight. And Donald actually just said the Santa Fe Spirits Tasting Room is one of the best. So he's a big fan.
Thank you, Donald. Yeah,
a big fan of your tasting room.
He and I tied one on there. That was a lot of fun. We had a good time down there. That's for sure. He came in and did an implementation for us at the distillery, and daytime was hard work, but nighttime was hard drinking. So we were having a good time. I'll answer your question. I sideswiped that a little bit.
No, that's fine. Take your time.
Cocktails. I am definitely a true believer in drinking whiskey neat. I really like it that way. However, my personal favorite cocktail is 2 parts Colkegan to 1 part. Let me see if I got a bottle of it here. Out of Pinot. And those of us who know this know anytime you see me, I'll carry a bottle of this around. Whoop, I got to get it the right way. This is a roasted Pignon liqueur.
Oh, wow.
Which is, it's our unaged whiskey, Colkegan, sorry, not Colkegan, Silver Coyote base. And it's roasted, it's a roasted pine nut liqueur.
Wow.
Or Pignon, as they call it out here in the Southwest. And it's sweetened with ponderosa pine resin. So it's really reminiscent of just being out in the woods. So 2 parts Colkegan, 1 part out of Pinot, 1 part vermouth, a dash of orange bitters and a dash of walnut bitters. And you're going to have a cocktail that is definitely in the boozy whiskey category, as I like to describe them, in the old-fashioned Manhattan kind of category. And it's got a great name. One of my bartenders named it after me. They call it the Nut Job.
That's the nut job.
It's the nut job. Yeah.
You call it the Antepino. Antepino?
Antepino, yeah. Named after the Adelia Trail and pine nuts or Pignon nuts. Those of you who know whiskey in this world of ours, this craft whiskey world, Johnny Jeffrey, who's now at Bentley Heritage, doing some great work out there with Bentley, and I really am desperate to see when they come out with their whiskeys, the great stuff they'll do. That really is grain to glass, their operation. But Johnny Jeffrey is a good friend of mine and a wonderful whiskey maker. He came out and did, for him, it was sort of like a sabbatical, but he was with us about 1.5 years here in Santa Fe. And he's a trail runner, and he was out running the trail, and he loved the smell. There's not many smells here because we don't have much humidity, so it's dry. But when you do get a rainstorm, he could smell that up in the mountains while he's a bit of a yompy, stompy mountain man. He was up there running the trails, and he wanted to get that into a bottle, and he did a great job with our liqueur, the Adapino liqueur. Kudos to Johnny Jeffrey. If there's whiskey drinkers out there, you'll know his name. And
that is the Nut Job.
That's
excellent stuff. No, yeah.
I will say for this time of year, I don't do it with craft whiskeys. I will do it with a more standard whiskey that's affordable. But whiskey and ginger, I think just whiskey and ginger beer on ice is a great summer drink. I like my whiskey more than I do any of the other gin and tonics and that kind of stuff. Whiskey ginger is good. And also, Manhattans is a favorite of mine. Ours is a smoky Manhattan because of the smoke in our whiskey. But of course, it technically, for the real aficionado, is a Rob Roy. Because it's got a single malt in it, not a bourbon. Right. Bourbon is a Manhattan, you know more about bourbon than I do, Tom.
Well, I could see it working in a Manhattan quite well, or a rum, but that would be really nice. And I've always been a fan of the silver Coyote that you guys do.
Oh yeah, I keep jumping up into my liquor cabinet here.
Yeah, that's always been a very special one for the that category.
Yeah. In the white dog category, I'm going the wrong way. I'm back to Frontier. I'd never make a pilot. I can't reverse fly. This one, what sets that apart as in the white dog category is it's 100% malted barley. So to my palate, unaged corn. I love my bourbons, but that's because they've aged in a bourbon cask, obviously in a whiskey cask. But unaged corn in a white dog can be a little bit sharp. Those of you who've had, moonshine, etc. This one being malted barley is just got that sweet graininess, and it's a very deep heads and tails cut. So there really is only 50% of what comes off the still that goes into that bottle.
It's very special. And again, the Silver Coyote, that's one that was one of the first ones you started making, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually, when we started being in the, I wouldn't say underfunded, to us, it's a lot of funding. But anyway, in the smaller category, we started with clear spirits. So we had Silver Coyote because we could make it and sell it straight away. Quite hard to start a distillery just selling White Dog. If anybody is starting up, I would wait until you really got your brown spirits ready. I wouldn't do that a second time around. And then we had our vodka and our gin, then our apple brandy, which is really what the genesis was of starting this whole thing. And then the single malts came in, and now we're more known for the single malt than anything, which I'm very happy about. I mean, that was really the eventual goal.
That is so important. And again, SantaFeSpirits.com is the place to go to check out everything they do. And since we mentioned Donald Sauter, I'm going to put his website up there because we were saying such a, he's so important for the whiskey business. If you're wanting to learn about his software and what he does, whiskeysystems.com is the place to go. And we appreciate folks like Donald and those in the business who've been watching us weekly since we started this during March. We started this show back when the pandemic hit, and we wanted to get great people like you on, Colin, every night. We've done it just about every night since March. Yeah, and we've had a fun time doing it, and it's a real pleasure and honor to spend some time with great people like you, Colin, and drink some great products. And for you, what's it been like for you all? What's been happening there since the pandemic's hit in March?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, again, I'm going to go back to my band of brothers, people like yourself again, Tom. BSG, Breeze Malting House, Saber Glass, Bruni Glass, the Cork guys, Tappy, Kevin and Leo over there at Tappy Corks. Right. We're all kind of in this together. You were talking, Tom, that everything you do is about tasting, really, and you have to do it remotely. And that's a challenge to all of us. We felt the challenge the same as a lot of people. We turned to hand sanitizer, which was a stroke of genius by somebody in the craft spirits movement. I didn't think about it, but as soon as I heard about it, we jumped on it, and we joined every other craft distillery, moving from being, trying to find a source for good glass into finding a source for plastic bottles to put hand sanitizer in.
Right.
It really did give us 2 months of survival. We donated a lot, but we actually sold a lot to the local population here in Santa Fe. We got some great contracts with Santa Fe Public Schools and Los Alamos National Labs, if anybody knows New Mexico, or the Manhattan Project is where they basically came up with a nuclear bomb. That's a big facility up here. They're a big supporter of ours, and a lot of the bigger organizations decided to try very hard to buy local. Right. And we were providing hand sanitizer, as was everybody in the New Mexico Distillers Guild. Not everybody, but those who could in the New Mexico Distillers Guild. We all had vodka on hand. Because we were buying vodka, we had high proof vodka, and we could make it. And that gave us 2 months more survival, as did the PPP loan, gave us another 2 months survival. Who knows what the rest of the year is going to look like? I mean, I don't want to be dour or down. We're optimistic. We're pivoting every which way we can. But it's going to be a challenge for those of us in the craft world, right, and those of us who supply the craft world, because if there's nobody buying your corks, in Kevin or Leah's case, or nobody buying your bottles, or maybe even your software in Donald's case, it's going to become challenging, but I really think we can all hunker down and make it through. I'm an optimist. You don't start a distillery if you're not an optimist. I can tell you that. You've got to be a little crazy and a little optimistic. Right. But sanitizer was good to us, and we have a lot of good friends out here in New Mexico. There's quite a bit of poverty. And I wouldn't generalize too much, but a lot of the pueblos are very poor, and we donated a lot of hand sanitizer to the pueblos. Wow. And it, as did a lot of other distilleries here. Tumbleroot is another distillery based here in Santa Fe, good friends of ours. They really led the charge there. We sort of tagged along with them, to be honest. Wow. And the others in the guild here, We have I was the guild president, but I'm not. I handed it over to Sky DeVore. I think she's done a great job. We're lobbying for some help from the government, but not really just more handouts. We're lobbying for direct to consumer. Hopefully we can get it here in the state of New Mexico.
Right.
Curbside delivery, pickup. The ability.
Do you have that already, or do you already have the curbside?
Yeah, we did that all the way through. That came about very early on. We got a letter from the ABC, the Alcohol Beverage Control director, and he let us do that. And that's really how we could sell the majority of our hand sanitizer, running out to people's cars with a little bag and a box of hand sanitizer and hopefully a bottle of whiskey, because they let us sell, spirits while we did that.
Right.
A lot of good stuff. Something else that we're working on, and a lot of people are, is RTDs, ready to drink cocktails. We talked about Manhattans.
Yes, I saw those on your face. You've been making some of those too.
We've been making a lot of those, actually. We have 5 different RTDs, and that's really what's selling a lot of. As a lot of distilleries, we're a classic version of that, selling a lot of RTDs, hand sanitizer, and whiskey when we can.
That's excellent. So a lot of good options for you, but what you are hoping to see from in more and more states, especially yours, every state, is the ability to actually send directly to consumers, right?
That would make, I think, a massive difference. And it would actually go hand in hand with what, I wouldn't say the federal government, let's leave that aside from my political views at the moment, but with the state governments, they're trying to say, distance yourself, distance yourself. We think if we can sell online to people, it helps everybody stay distanced. They don't have to come to us to get Colkegan. We could FedEx it to them or UPS it to them, Becky at Catocan Creek there, our new guild president at ACSA, she managed to, her and her husband Scott and a lot of other good distillers in Virginia there, they managed to get direct-to-consumer shipping allowed during the pandemic. And I think they've proven, or will by the end, whenever the end of this is going to be, that it has really helped small business. It hasn't impacted the liquor world in a big way. And it's kind of just good for business. The same as in Kentucky, the Kentucky KDA, Kentucky Distillers Association. Yep. That's a huge lobbying group. And they've got direct-to-consumer shipping. And if those guys can show that it's really working well, they manage this, I think, in Washington State as well. I believe they did in Oregon as well, just during the pandemic here. If we can prove from those states that everybody's being responsible and there's not really a backlash from this, that would be a way that businesses like ours could really survive. Distribution is difficult and more difficult than before. It's not distributors at all. They are suffering as well because on-premise is really, in most states, still closed. But they have to look after their big brands. I mean, that's business 101. You look after your best customers. And if Jack Daniels is selling a lot, you start looking after that. And that's what the customers are looking for in the majority of cases is affordable products, because a lot of people have lost their jobs. So we really, if we all work together, I think direct-to-consumer shipping can help us in a big way. Partly because what it gives is, in the case of Santa Fe Spirits, it would get us to a scale where distributors could cope with us. The bigger distributors that can help us get into other states don't really know what to do with craft spirits because it's a hand sell. It's not just a programmed thing. If we can get to a scale where the public really want us because they've been buying us online for the last 5 years or whatever, then we go to a distributor. We can say, look, we're selling 10,000 cases, which would be great for us. Please pick us up. So it's not cutting. It'll cut into the sales in a tiny way, but it'll remove us from bugging them to put us on a shelf. We'll be selling it online, and then eventually it'll go back to the liquor stores. And we're not trying to hurt liquor stores because they're our friends too.
Right. Everybody has to work together. Yes, absolutely.
That was a bit of a speech. That was my soapbox piece. Yeah.
It was wonderful. No, it's so important because, again, no matter what the state is, prior to the pandemic, there are some states that got it passed, but distilleries were generally unable to send and sell spirits through their website to people in their own state or other states, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean,
But the
we
states that
can't
got it
tell.
passed, did they just do it within the state borders? Is that what happened?
I think in Virginia, and I go back to Becky at Coyote,
Right.
because that's who I've talked to a lot. She's led a really good charge and really helped do ACSA and a lot of other distillers all over the place. She's done a great job. They showed a photo of like a wall of the product that they delivered in a day. And I know for any craft distillery, that's a lot of booze to send out. And it's all signed for, because UPS and FedEx know how to get signatures for things. They know how to run direct to consumer things properly.
Right.
So anyway, it hopefully those states don't get any backlash from the detractors from this.
Right. Hopefully it continues.
I really think it's good for the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
And it will strengthen us all. I don't think it will lead to any more underage drinking. That's not something you want in the craft spirits world. Sure. And they're typically, underage drinkers are not going out there looking for a bottle of Colkegan. They're really not. I mean, and, you know, I don't think it leads to lesser product like they've had in other countries. You know, you hear about Mexico and India, I heard recently, people poisoning themselves really by drinking methanol. That's not what craft spirits is about, and it's not what we're going to try and sell. You know, online, I think it's the way to go. It's catching up with the modern world, bringing the 3-tier system into the modern world in a responsible way, if we can all talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to have those discussions and to give craft distillers, especially, every chance to sell that they can, and hopefully that'll hopefully only good things will come from this crazy time that will change the future. I mean, that's what we can look forward to. We hope that some good things will come from this.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, as I say, you started Distillery being an optimist, and you know, all of us in our little craft world, and let's hope we all come out of this smiling and happy, and all our businesses make it. We know some of us will fall by the wayside, but I really hope we can all band together. I see some consolidation happening, actually. I don't know if it's going to be suppliers and distillers or just distillery to distillery. If a lot of us can put aside, you know, I have to make a mesquite smoke single malt, or I have to make my vodka. I think I mean, distributors do it all the time. They consolidate, which, you know, for us now is our access to the market, but it's business, you know. I mean, I think for us, business could be some consolidation, you know, other companies partnering together if the rules and regulations can allow for that. But it's back to rules and regulations.
Sure. So you think some of the craft distilleries might somehow consolidate or join forces then?
As much as they can. It's very difficult to do across state lines, I think.
Right.
But
maybe more regionally. It's
not impossible. If you've all got the same vision and you would all rather see both of you survive rather than, you know, none of us are going to get rich on this, not in the craft world particularly.
Well, I think you speak to some important points because, you know, while we know people are still enjoying good spirits during the pandemic, liquor stores stay open.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, except for the enthusiasts, the whiskey lovers, and those that want to support local, a lot of the time what they're buying aren't the craft products the last few months, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they well, it started out that way. The joke was, give me a handle of Jack Daniels and a box of wine and I'll be happy. But talking to the others in the New Mexico Distillers Guild, we have seen sort of a swing back to people saying, okay, you know, enough of the drinking. Let's sit and taste something fun. Right. And if I can support,
let's have something good.
I will.
Yeah,
it's been quite heartwarming to see people doing that. Sorry.
Yes. No, I think it's so important, and I hope that consumers continue to do that, and supporting local, whether it's restaurants, locally owned
Yeah.
businesses, and spirits is so important. So the Colkegan, again, the whiskeys that we can find are the apple finished in brandy, the finished in brandy apple casks, and the original and the Cask Strength. Definitely look for these. These are so tasty, as well as your other products I've had before are so good. When will that sherry finish be out? Then you said in the fall, or
That'll be out in September. Yeah. It'll be available in the tasting room September. We're trying to have a big party, but that could be put all the tables out in our parking lot at 6 foot distance and have one person per table with a little sample cup. And if they like it, hopefully they'll buy a bottle. We've only done 2 casks of it, but they're 60-gallon sherry casks. So we'll have, what's that, 400 and 500 bottles of it. So just out of the tasting rooms for the first couple of weeks, then in New Mexico, probably Colorado, and then the other states we distribute in. We'll do a case drop to each state, just so we can get the word out there.
Right. What's it tasting like so far?
It's really good. It's really good. Yeah, I mean, when we do our Apple Brandy cask finish, I was going to talk about that quickly. I don't want to hold everybody up too long.
No, it's good. It's
when
so
we
good.
do the 15 cask blend, we pour 15 casks into a tote, one of those big stainless totes, the big 500-gallon ones, and then we will let it marry, add some water back to the 92 proof. Then we actually, while we're getting towards the 92 proof, even a little higher, we pull a few hundred gallons out and finish off in the Apple Brandy casks. And what that does is it's regular Colkegan with another year of aging.
Wow.
And I love Colkegan, just the way it is at 3 years, but 4 years adds just another couple of layers of complexity. And we're seeing that already in the sherry cask finish. We've got another 3 months to go. And I'm excited. I'm really excited for the release.
That is exciting. I see Mike Lissack, who's watching on YouTube, is asking how the sherry finished cask is coming.
Thanks for asking, Mike. Yeah, it's gonna be good. I tasted some. Actually, I one of the things I was doing before we got online. These are the samples that I have. You can see them right here.
Yes, hand labeled.
My distiller doesn't have the best handwriting, but he's a good guy. I'm tasting it at 94. We're tasting it. So we're at the stage of final label approval.
Nice.
94, 100, 104, and 108. We're leaning towards 100 proof at the moment, but we taste amongst our friends and families.
Leaning towards 100.
Yeah.
Right.
And
yeah, that sounds really good.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it sounds amazing. I would love to try it when that comes
out. We'll get
Mike
some bottles out in circulation, and maybe we'll have a different chance to talk about that.
We'll get you back.
Yeah.
And we'll taste some sherry. I'd love that in September. We'll definitely do that. Mike says Colin is a delight, and his whiskey is wonderful. Everyone should go buy it. So, Mike, thank you for watching us on YouTube.
Mike, I owe you $5, Mike. Thank you for saying that.
What you're doing. Our friends from My Whiskey Den on YouTube say pick the 105. That's what they're voting for. So a lot of great people watching us. Again, wherever you're watching us, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. Make sure you like this video, share it. We always like to know that people that support wonderful whiskey makers and craft distilleries like Colin's are sharing it. So definitely share this video. And also make sure you bookmark bourbonblog.com live, as we're here just about every night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I know that on Saturday we'll be back with a cigar and whiskey night. We'll be talking with the former star of the show, Pit Boss, on Animal Planet, Shorty Rossi and Matty Ross. We're having cigars with them and whiskey. And you know what? I think your whiskey goes great with cigars. I may have to pull out one of these bottles on Saturday when we have our show.
Quick side note, I don't want to hold everybody up. We have a couple of people. We have to heat and humidify our rick house in New Mexico because it's so dry and hot. we heat it through the winter. In the summer, we humidify it. But with the humidification that we have in there, we have a couple of people that have taken 2 of our casks that we've emptied, knocked the heads off, and they age their cigars in there. So they get a Colkegan cask aged cigars. They're putting them in there, and they're using that as their humidifier. Yeah, this is with the smoke we have in the whiskey. If you like that kind of evening, a smoky evening, it goes well with the cigar.
That is cool. So they actually put the tobacco itself, or actually the cigars that are already made?
Cigars themselves, and they're soaking up some of the flavor.
That's incredible.
I drink whiskey. I smoke cigars when my wife isn't around. She will not put up with too much of that, but I will have one as often as I can.
I think you said she wasn't there tonight, right?
She's not here tonight, so I might have to crack out a cigar. Yeah.
That's a good plan. No, I think your whiskey's really great with cigars and goes so well with so many things. It's so rich. It's complex. There's just so many great things. Whether you're a bourbon drinker, a Scotch drinker, or you just like the American single malts, it'll be exciting to see what happens in this category of American single malt. When do you think that? I know you all are with the American Single Malt Commission. Is that what you're called?
Yes, the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission. We're under review with the Taxation and Trade Bureau, or our paperwork is under review to get category recognition. And Steve and Jared and Jason and Christian and Gareth have all done a great job of really sort of taking this further forward. They've done a lot more of the heavy lifting than I have, I'll be honest. But the thing about the the Taxation and Trade Bureau is there's a government agency. There's many avenues to go down, and there's many people who need to sign off on things. They signed off last year on white dogs that were submitted to them about 7 or 8 years ago. So it might be a road to hoe, but hopefully with the changing landscape of alcohol and the spirits industry, it might move further forward, and hopefully it comes up sooner rather than later.
Well, we wish you the best with what you're doing.
Keep your eye on that ball.
Yeah. And all the distillers making great American single malt. I'm loving yours, and so many of the ones that are coming out I think are so interesting, and I think it's great that we're seeing more and more of it. Cheers to you, Colin, for all you do for the spirits, craft spirits industry, and what you've done for American single malt. And it's so good to see you, man. I'm looking forward to hopefully when all this is over, seeing you for a good glass of whiskey.
Funnily, for an Englishman, I'm a bit of a hugger, so I miss the hugs from my craft distiller buddies, you know, you included, Tom. And then maybe it's still on the hill, maybe at ACSA conferences. Here's to everybody in the craft world, and kudos for doing what you do. Cheers, my friend. Cheers, and thanks to everyone watching. We raise a toast to you as well. And again, make sure you check out SantaFeSpirits.com. And if anyone has any questions, drop me a line at tom@bourbonblog.com. Cheers, Colin. I'm looking forward to Saturday. Saturday sounds great. We'll do cigars and whiskey Saturday. Sounds good.